Let's get some real expert analysis. Joining us now, Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee. Austin, thanks for joining us this morning. We have
good morning, Steve. How are you?
We've now had 3 of the 4 inflation reports we get in this nation. The most important come in the end of this month, PCE, but we can kind of calculate that. Take a step back. We know you don't react to any single inflation report or any single report. Give us your picture right now, or your sense right now, Austin, of the inflation story in this country right now.
Well, it's been a little mixed. It feels like the first 2 of the 4 came in quite mild, and we were feeling good. And I was saying here and elsewhere, if we get several reports like that, I'm going to feel comfortable that we're still on the golden path and things be okay for rates to come down. We put in a note of unease, I'd say, in the last CPI and now PPI, with the inflation kicking up in categories that are not obviously going to be transitory, which is to say the services inflation look to be turning up. So I feel like we still need another one at least to figure out if we're still on the golden path.
Were you looking, as I was this morning, into those import prices to see if they were the exporters were absorbing some of this, and now you don't see it? What is your sense of this number this morning? Usually, I don't know, in 23 years of doing this on TV, I've maybe talked about import prices 1 or 2 times before, but now it's kind of important, right?
Yeah, look, we're out sniffing in all sorts of places that are not normal to have to sniff. The thing about import prices to remember is they don't include the tariffs. In most of those cases, the tariffs will be on top of it. So if the foreign is absorbing, if the foreign exporters to the United States are absorbing the cost, those prices should be going down. If those prices go up and then you add the tariffs on top of it, that's a little bit the scenario. That's the unease scenario where, the costs are going up, and now we're in the business of trying to figure out, well, how long are those price increases going to last? Let's not overreact to 1 month of import price data, for sure. Let's not overreact to 1 month of CPI or PPI inflation, but it's at least an area of concern.
Austin, when it's come to rates, you've been maybe, what do they say? St. Augustine said, "Oh, Lord, let me be chaste, but not today." Your attitude has been...
I thought you were going to say brilliant and prudent, Steve.
Brilliant and prudent, yes, sir.
What is this?
Yes, sir, and chaste. But the thing is that you've talked about rates will come down over time, but you've been a little bit circumspect about the time over which they should come down. Could you give us your sense of that right now?
Well, I was pretty specific of the time frame in the run-up to April 2nd, and that I thought over the year they could come down a lot because we were at pretty much full employment and inflation was headed to 2%, and that's the thing that the FOMC by law is supposed to be looking at. What's happened is we've added a lot of uncertainty and we've added a lot of dirt in the air, which much of it has come from tariffs. And the tariffs, the theory that tariffs are a one-time price increase, that's true for one and done tariffs. And these haven't been one or done. And so we're trying to grapple with this idea of, is this going to be a persistent inflation shock? Is this going to be stagflationary in direction, which is to say it's going to be driving down employment at the same time as driving up prices? That's the worst thing the central bank has to think through, because there's not an obvious playbook. You got to sort of weigh off which of these is a bigger miss and how long is the bigger miss going to last. So you can't answer the question, when will we know that we're back or still on the path that we were on before April 2nd, without answering the question, is this going to be the end of the stagflationary shocks, or are we going to keep getting new policy administrations?
So when you say that and you talk about this, it sounds like you need some time at the least. And if you could, when you respond to that, also answer this question: how much does the Fed's stance about policy play a role in figuring out whether or not tariffs become a wider spread problem?
Okay, you know the rules. I'm not allowed to speak for the Fed or anybody else on the command. I can just talk about how I think about that. I think partly the conventional wisdom for how should a central bank respond to a stagflationary shock, which I think of tariffs as having a heavy stagflationary component. The primary effect, the Fed can't pump oil, the Fed can't adjust the supply side, but it can try to prevent the secondary impacts, which could be wage price spirals, or if you start thinking about the secondary impacts of tariffs on parts, components, supplies, and intermediate goods, now it's a little more complicated than the Econ 101 version, because now the tariff isn't just staying in its lane, it's going to be raising the cost of production for domestic manufacturing and others. And that's a lot of times, certainly during COVID and post-COVID, took time to wind its way through the economy. So I do think we're going to be in the business of trying to figure out which part of these price increases are we ignoring because we think they're transitory, and which ones are we responding to. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to hold forever or for as long as it takes for the prices to come back down. It all depends on the data and what's the economic outlook. If we keep getting inflation reports like the ones we had, the first two of these four that you mentioned, I would be very comfortable that, hey, the dust is out of the air. It looks like we're still where we were, which is a strong economy with inflation coming back down. In that circumstance, I think it's totally fine. It's expected. It's the right thing to do to bring the rates down to where we think they're going to settle.